Google female detectives in cinema and a list pops up. When I did it, the list was relegated to Miss Marple, Veronica Mars, Helen Mirren as Detective Chief Inspector Jane Tennyson in Prime Suspect, and a handful of more modern characters. And the more I looked, the more there seems to be this false notion that women weren't being portrayed as capable detectives in film or on TV until the 1950s and 1960s, at the height of the feminist movement. Actually, though, there were female detectives solving crimes all the way back into the silent film era, into the 1930s and 1940s, and many of these pioneering women enjoyed great popularity in not just one movie, but in a series of movies that rivaled other series like Sherlock Holmes, Michael Shayne, or even The Thin Man. These female detectives weren't written as typical damsels in distress either. Instead, they often went toe-to-toe with the men, and if they ended up in peril, it was a mere speed bump in their adventures. In the early 1900s, the mystery movie genre, within which starred actresses like Elsie Albert or Laura Sawyer, was enjoying success due in part to the 1910s craze for women action stars. Enter Ruth Rowland. Born in San Francisco, her father, Jack Rowland, managed a local theater, and as a child actress, she worked in vaudeville before the Kalem Film Company chose her to launch a series of 18 almost episodic two-reelers starring Rowland as the girl detective in 1915. These films were almost episodic because one short film came out every Wednesday. I only found one of these films on YouTube entitled The Girl Detective, The Mystery of the Tea Dansant, from 1915. It's the fourth episode, and title cards are written in Dutch, but you can still follow the story. It starts with Ruth Rendell, a full-fledged member of the police, waiting for a new case after she has just successfully solved the previous one. Meanwhile, Marguerite Wheeler, played by Cleo Ridgely, arrives at Marmaduke's dance academy for lessons. Marmaduke, played by Thomas Lingham, is in dire financial straits, so he kidnaps Marguerite, hoping for a large ransom. The plot is fairly simple, but it does involve Ruth going to the last place Marguerite was seen, questioning Marmaduke's assistant Darby, and Ruth herself going undercover at the dance school. Other notable early depictions of female detectives include Elsie Albert as Nell Pierce in The Woman Who Dared in 1911, Enid Bennett in The Woman in the Suitcase in 1920, Lillian Gish and Sunum, best known for her stunt work along with her acting. In 1932, RKO Radio Pictures introduced Hildegard Withers, played by Edna May Oliver, to the cinema-going public in the first of a series of 6 movies. The first movie was entitled The Penguin Pool Murder, the same title as author Stuart Palmer's novel from the previous year, 1931. The novel described the character as a Bostonian spinster and schoolteacher. She was a lean, angular lady who wears unusual hats and carries a black cotton umbrella. She collects tropical fish, abhors alcohol and tobacco, and appears to have an irritable disposition. However, she is a romantic at heart and will often extend herself to help young lovers. She frequently collaborates with Inspector Oscar Piper, a high-ranking homicide detective in the New York Police Department. Edna May Oliver cast such a huge shadow in the role that when she left after the third movie, RKO attempted to continue the series with Helen Broderick and Zazu Pitts. But all 3 films were poorly received by fans who viewed Oliver as the definitive Mrs. Withers. Currently, all 6 movies can be found on a DVD set from the Warner Brothers archives on Amazon.
Everybody, come on, take this way. Come on. Madam, will you make up your mind? Did you or did you not see Seymour hit the deceased?
Beg pardon, Inspector. She answered that question a few moments ago. I did not.
What are you doing? Writing a letter home?
Oh, I'm taking down the minutes of the meeting.
Not a bad idea. All right, you can go. Now, listen. I've still got a lot of questions, and somebody here's got the answers. Who was the first one to see the body?
I was. Go on, young man.
Were you alone?
I was with my class of pupils.
Where are those pupils? What do you mean by letting them go home?
Letting them? I see you have no children of your own, Inspector. The moment you ordered everybody to stay, they, I believe the word is scrammed.
You seem to have authority over everyone except your own pupils. By the way, what's your full name?
Hildegard Martha Withers.
Occupation?
Well, really, Inspector, what do you suppose I was doing here with my class of pupils? Entertaining the fish? I'm a schoolteacher, and I might have done wonders with you if I'd caught you young enough.
Acquainted with the deceased?
Only by sight. I saw him for the first time in the tank today.
That'll do for you.
Thank you.
What's your name?
Seymour. Philip Seymour.
Come on, what are you doing here? Woo! Why, if you ever call me that again, I'll... Come on, let's go down and see the inspector. Come on. It's as clear as day what happened. You're in love with Mrs. Parker. And you murdered an unconscious, defenseless man.
You can't bully me into anything, Inspector. I don't think I killed Parker, and if I did, it was an accident.
You killed him, all right. And if Mrs. Parker was mixed up in it, we'll find that out, too. Looks like another Snyder Gray killing to me. Come on, take up your feet. Come on. Come on. All right, what's this, Donovan? I found this worm hiding behind one of the tanks.
Why, that's the man I caught with my umbrella, Chicago Lou.
Hiding behind the tanks, eh? Well, you know something, and you're going to spill it. G.P. Gerald Parker. The murdered man's watch. Come on, where'd you get that watch? Pick up.
Can't you see the man's a deaf mute?
Oh, you won't talk, huh? All right, get him out of here and lock him up.
In 1937, Warner Brothers produced the first of a series of 9 films starring a fictional female reporter, Torchy Blaine, entitled Smart Blonde. Smart Blonde was an adaptation of the McBride and Kennedy novels by detective novelist Frederick Nebel, whose main 2 characters were a no-nonsense cop and his friend, a hard-drinking newspaperman. To shake up a somewhat stereotypical pairing, the studio changed the newspaperman into a female reporter named Teresa Torchy Blaine and turned the cop into her love interest. Upon the change, director Frank McDonald immediately knew who he wanted for the role of Torchy Blaine, Glenda Farrell. Farrell had already played hard-boiled reporters in previous Warner Brothers films, Mystery of the Wax Museum in 1933 and Hi Nellie in 1934. Glenda Farrell played the character of Torchy Blaine in 7 of the 9 films. On her portrayal of Blaine, Farrell said in her 1969 Time interview, "Before I undertook to do the first Torchy, I was determined to create a real human being, not an exaggerated comedy type. So Farrell met newswomen who visited Hollywood and watched him work on Farrell's visits to New York City. She found him to be generally young, intelligent, refined, and attractive, not at all like their stereotype of being flighty young ladies who constantly needed the assistance of some young man. Torchy was a real girl," Farrell said proudly. "I made her bright, intelligent, daring, single-minded, and able to hold her own. By making Torchy true to life, I tried to create a character practically unique in movies. And in doing so, Farrell made the Torchy Blaine series of movies one of the most popular of its day." It should be noted that in the 5th film, Torchy Blaine in Panama, Warner Brothers replaced Farrell with Lola Lane, but negative fan reaction led to the studio to recast Farrell, who went on to star in the next 3 Torchy Blaine films. Then in 1939, Glenda Farrell left Warner Brothers, and the studio recast Torchy again with actress Jane Wyman for the final movie, Torchy Blaine Playing with Dynamite. Currently, these movies can be viewed in the Torchy Blaine DVD collection from Warner Archives on Amazon.
Hagen.
Yes.
I want you to take this note to Tom Brennan in the Federal Building.
Is the office open this late, sir?
If it isn't, they'll give you his home address.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Bring back his answer.
Yes, sir.
And don't show that to Torchy Blaine.
Oh, you know me, boss.
Yeah, that's the trouble.
Yes, sir.
You all ready, Mr. Gilbert?
Yes, my car's down front.
All right, let's go.
Thank you, Captain. You're going to be a great help.
Yeah, see you all later.
Well, I'd begun to think dinner was going to turn into breakfast.
Oh, I'm sorry, Torchy, but I can't take you to dinner.
You what? You mean... Oh, you mean on account of this gentleman here? Well, he can have dinner with us.
Oh, this is Miss Blaine. Miss Blaine, this is Mr.
Gilbert. How do you do, Mr. Gilbert?
How do you do, Miss Blaine?
You'll have dinner with us, won't you?
Well, I'd like to, but we have some
we
things
can't
that...
do it, Torchy. We have some important business. I'll call you later. Come on, Mr. Gilbert.
I think I'll have a snoop instead of a steak.
Torchy, I thought I made you understand. We got important business.
Well, I'm stuck here. Drop me someplace.
I'll see you tomorrow. Go ahead, Mr. Gilbert. Look out now. Go ahead. Take care of yourself. So long, kid.
Oh, don't ever do that, Torchy. Now, what's the matter?
Hagen, I forgot to tell Steve something important. Follow him, Pony.
Oh, listen, Torchy, listen. I'm sorry. I can't do that. I got an important errand to do.
What have you got to do?
Well, I got to deliver a note to Mr. Brennan of the United States. Oh, gee, Torchy, I come there saying something I shouldn't have. I got to get out of here.
Fine couple of basketball players.
Probably the most well-known of the early female detectives, Nancy Drew came to life on the cinema screen when Warner Brothers Studio decided to base a movie on a literary sensation in 1938. Entitled Nancy Drew Detective, this was the first of 4 films from 1938 through 1939, all of which were written by Torchy Blaine writer Kenneth Gamut, and all of which starred Bonita Granville as Nancy Drew. The daughter of vaudevillians, Granville began her career on stage at age 3, eventually making her way into films and rising to prominence for her role in These Three in 1936, which earned her an Academy Award nomination at age 14. 2 years later, she would star as Nancy Drew. Behind-the-scenes turmoil, like the director and writer being replaced twice in the foreign film run, and audience reaction being mixed, stopped any original plans the studio may have had for an 8 or even 9 series of films. Some cinema-goers thought that the portrayal of Nancy Drew wasn't close enough to the character's portrayal in the books, and some even criticized the films for portraying Drew as childish and easily flustered. Still others really enjoyed the movies, making them somewhat of a cult success. These 4 Nancy Drew movies can be found on Amazon.
I got it, Mr. Bostwick. All about the Lambert inquest. I was a little delayed on account of a man ran into my fender, and I had
So it was you, huh? You switched those assignment slips, didn't you?
Well, I thought reporters always did things like that. At least they do in the movies. And besides, it says right in my textbook on journalism that a newspaper man or woman must stop at nothing to get news. And if she ever intends to impress the editor, she must be willing to do much more than just what the assignment calls for. So there.
A thing like this would happen to me.
I have it. Every word. Oh, it's sensational. I bet you 2380 you never thought I could do it.
Miss Drew, the story of the Lambert inquest was on the street a half hour ago.
But that's impossible. I have it right here.
We were lucky enough to get it from the DA's office.
I could go on listing great movies whose lead roles were female detectives, like Follow That Woman with Nancy Kelly from 1945, or the 2 films Adventures of Kitty O'Day and Detective Kitty O'Day, starring Gene Parker from 1944 and 1945. But I've decided to end this video essay with a favorite film of mine, entitled Exposed, starring Adele Mara from 1947. Republic Pictures, the longtime Cliffhanger serial studio, put out this movie, and it was written by cliffhanger serial veteran writer Royal K. Cole and Charles Moran. Several members of the cast were also serial movie pros, including Lorna Gray, known partially for the Captain America serial and the Daughter of Don Q serial. Adele Mara was already a well-known actress in Hollywood before she took on the leading role of Belinda Prentice in Exposed, having worked previously with the Three Stooges, Rita Hayworth, Fred Astaire, and John Wayne. Here's a brief synopsis of the plot. A beautiful female private detective, Adele Mara, is hired by a wealthy businessman to check up on his stepson, the heir to the family fortune, who has been withdrawing large amounts of money from his bank account, taking an apartment in the city, and is generally acting suspiciously. The detective soon finds herself mixed up in secret experiments, shadowy underworld figures, and the murder of her employer. I found the movie Exposed on YouTube.
May I help you?
Where's B. Prentice?
You're looking at her.
Indeed. A woman private investigator?
You were expecting maybe Senator Claghorn?
A woman, eh? Well, that may not be bad. Not at all bad. You impress me as having the necessary qualifications.
Just what am I qualifying for? A horse race or the Rose Bowl parade?
I beg your pardon.
Skip it. What's your problem, Mr.
Bentry, Colonel Bentry.
William K. Bentry?
You're obviously familiar with my background.
Who's who keeps you in the foreground? You're the widower of the fabulous Connie Forsman, stepfather of William Forsman III and Judith Forsman, heirs to the Forsman Foods, an empire that has been parlayed from a jar of pickles into $1 million enterprise. Smoke?
No, thanks. Let's get down to business.
Yes, let's. Just what did you want to see me about?
About my stepson.
William Forsman III?
You know him?
Of him?
Well, he's been acting rather strangely of late. I might even say mysteriously. He's made a number of large and rather odd withdrawals. That is odd for him. Now, I wouldn't be concerned if there was any explanation, but there seems to be none.
Should there be?
Well, not necessarily. But many of these withdrawals have been in extremely large amounts. And he's confided in no one. Not even in the firm's attorney.
Who's he?
Jonathan Lowell. Lowell and I have been running the business since Mrs. Bentry died. I've been chairman of the board, and he's general counsel.
Have you tried questioning your stepson?
No. I was afraid that he might think I was prying. He's taken an apartment in the city.
Is he in the habit of moving out?
Occasionally. But he always lets us know where he is. This time, nothing but silence.
Let me get this straight. What concerns you is that there must be some strange connection between that apartment and the large withdrawals. Is that right?
Exactly.
Is it possible for a lady of, shall we say, agreeable disposition to have him hanging on a hook?
Bill's no playboy. As a matter of fact, since the war, he's been rather scientifically inclined. He's no fool.
I see. If he went in for that sort of thing, he'd have a receipt paid in full before the first round bell.
Rather quaintly put, but that's about it.
Exactly what do you want me to find out?
I want you to find out what's going on down there. Here's the address, the number of the apartment, and the unlisted telephone number.
Has he had any trouble with his sister?
No. They're devoted.
Could be he's helping her live her own life.
Judith lives her own life, inside or outside the house.
In order to identify Bill Forsman, I'll have to meet him. I never leave anything to chance.
He's spending the day at home. Why don't you drop by? I'll introduce you. Oh, we'll have to have some reason for your being there.
You're interested in art. I'm an expert, going to a private sale with you to guard against fraud.
Excellent. You'll find my address on the back of that card.
I'll drop by later. Oh, and one other thing. My rates. $75 a day and expenses.
Well, there you are. 1 week in advance, Miss Prentice.
My secretary will give you a receipt.
That won't be necessary. Good day.
If I ever heard a phony setup, that's it.
What do you care? We're paid in advance.
Okay, what's the pitch?
Get your hat. We're going to see if that apartment is accessible.
The movies I've noted today are all examples of how cinema, even in the early days, valued and respected the characterization of female detectives as leading roles in movies. These women were treated as intellectual equals among their more numerous male counterparts, and each served as a strong foundation upon which female detectives in today's films and television thrive upon. If you like this video, please take a moment to hit that like button and consider subscribing to the Whodunitville channel. That way you'll be notified every time we come out with another video. Please also consider sharing this video with others. It really helps the channel. Thank you.